All right. All right. All right. All right. All right.
Hiya.
Hello, hello. How's it going?
Good. Yeah, not too bad.
Good. Looks like we got Kate's going to. I know that Layla won't be able to make it today. I'm not. Devin looks like he's on the move, so maybe,
Right.
but we'll see. Kate.
Hey, I thought you
Fresh out
weren't
of the
been.
sea. I'm
I thought you weren't able to
just
come
trying to.
tonight, Kate.
I know I dropped out of the 6 o'clock thing because I wanted to support you.
Oh,
Oh, thank
nice.
you.
Well, that's so nice.
But I'm just trying to find a
Fantastic.
pen.
Uh, yeah, I guess we'll just kind of hang out for a couple more minutes and see who else is able to make it.
Yeah,
Maybe we
I'm
will.
not that long out of the sea, actually, Kate. That's why my hair looks like it does.
Oh, and I've managed to get home, but I haven't managed to get indoors. I thought, well, I can just sit on my drive and do the
Yeah,
thing.
that's the beauty of that vehicle, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever I try and work from the sea or from a swim, I have to sit in my car. Not as fun.
So we are doing Connect, aren't we? I got in a proper muddle.
Yes. Yeah, me
Yes.
too.
I just jumped. Nice. Hey, Devin,
I don't. I don't.
you made it. You were on a plane the last I saw. Oh, you were on your way to another plane.
Got in at 4 a.m., but I'm here today. Good
Nice.
morning.
That's great. Awesome. I wonder, I know Layla can't make it. She's camping. Um, so maybe we'll go with this and just see who else shows up. Got a couple of minutes to see if anyone else is coming. But yeah, so why don't I just kick it off? So Jane is step forward to volunteer for our next facilitating member, which is super cool. I'm excited that people are taking this on and are interested. So, kind of without further ado, I am going to figure out how to change the hosting here. I'm going to get way better at this. Oh, maybe I got it. So I'm going to make Jane the host and let's see how it goes.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I am going to say where I was with that, Neil. You messaged me and it's like, yeah, I'm going to say yes. And then afterwards, I went, oh my God, what did I just say yes to? So I'm going to be, highly honest about that. She's like, yeah, of course I'd love to host it. And I was really excited about hosting it and still am. But it did bring that, oh my God, what have I just signed up to?
Yeah.
But yeah, so today we're doing Connect. And before I bring it up, I just wondered what others were really drawn to with that. I know we talked a bit about this last week, but what is it about Connect that perhaps draws you in your life, is easy, is difficult? What is it about Connect? Go on, Devon. Yeah.
I'm so excited. One, because you're facilitating, and I realized last week that that was the part that I don't do. So
Ah,
out of all of
yeah.
those 4 phases, I'm just like, I've realized I've been kind of aware of who's around me, and when they mention something that I can support with, I can invite them, but I am not proactively connecting. So I'm really excited because this is the biggest gap for me.
I think actually, you know, I'm going to echo that because there's something about Connect that is kind of, it seems so obvious that we miss it out, don't we? We go straight to invite. Anybody else got any thoughts on that? Yes, Kate.
Yeah, I have become good at connecting. So I have grown a community, and I have probably 140 people like on my dashboard, people that I've generated
Wow.
conversations with, which I'm really pleased about because, you know, I used to be mute. So for me, it's the next bit, it's the invite bit that is my
Yeah.
like, but
So,
the connecting and the conversations, I do enjoy. And I think
and what?
about, as that opening line is, who would I love to speak to? So
Yeah.
yeah, that they are people, and they're people that I know or have come to know through LinkedIn conversations, people locally, mostly. Um, so yeah, but I'm excited to
That,
apply this more deeply.
Neil, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so definitely connect. I think almost probably to a subconscious degree that I just skipped over the part in the chapter. Like right? Like I made it. So obviously I also I realized in the moment after you had shown me that part, I was like, wow, there is an embedded assumption in my mind right there that, oh, we've talked about
Yeah.
connecting, we can kind of like move on. Like I just decided to
Yeah.
blank out and skip that part. Uh
What drew me to it was that I knew that Kate was talking about her chapter being invite.
oh
So
yeah,
that was the
okay.
first alarm. You see, I had that alarm, and then I went, "Oh my goodness, let's look back." But yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah, and it made me, I think that this chapter, and one of the things that's always a stumbling block for me is um the idea of calling someone up and connecting with them and or wanting to connect with them and it not being a situation where I kind of burden them with questions or I'm
yeah,
like how it kind of says in here like ask them like what their biggest dreams are and all those kinds of things and being able to do that without putting them on the spot.
yeah.
It's like
I
if you
think, yeah,
it's
carry on.
it's just like if there's always that kind of like old dating kind of strategy that says like when you go to dinner, like ask people questions about themselves. And
Yeah,
that's true, but it also can turn into like an interrogation, like where you just
yes,
keep asking questions about them, and then you're like now you feel like you're like the FBI or something like that. So
yeah. This I get exactly that. I think with both you and Kate mentioning the book, what I think we're going to do before we come to you, Kate, is actually just I'm just going to share my screen on the first page. Can you let me know when it comes up and if it comes up? Yeah, is that okay? Is that there? Excellent. Okay. I'm also mindful I've just let Philip in, so I'm wondering if he's there.
it's Philip.
Where is he? Because
I'm
you,
here.
you
I'm sneaking in.
oh, okay. It's good to hear you, Philip. It's really good to have you here. Um,
Glad to be here.
because Connect, when I first turned to this chapter, as you said, Neil, it says, who would I love to speak? No, I think it was Kate said this. Who would I love to speak to? And I've got the audiobook. And in the audiobook, when Rich reads this chapter, he highlights love. So who would I love to speak to? And I suddenly like, oh, okay. I don't think that's how I look at things. I think I look at the connections as who could I turn into a client? And that's a completely different question. And I wonder if that's true for others, because that was a real realization for me. I don't connect with people I love to connect with. I connect with people I think I can convert to a client. So I'm connecting in the wrong way, at the wrong level. And that was a real eye-opener for me.
Am I good?
Yes, Kate.
I was doing that. There are some businesses that I would love to work with locally, and some people that I think I know that they could really benefit. I would love to work with them, and I want them to become a client. But as he talks about, so I listened to these 4 chapters this morning, and he talks about that sometimes it's months and months and months. And I do have somebody who was joining me in October for my 3-day thing, and I've been talking to her for 2 years, and it started off with a coffee, and it started off, then it was, I'm doing a bit of research, can we have another chat?
Yeah.
And then once we got, so, and I was going back to the bit that you said about interrogation,
Yeah.
Neil, people, is it how we're interpreting how we're feeling, as opposed to people love being listened to. So by asking questions, you're giving them more opportunity to let stuff out. So we're coming from a, God, it feels like an interrogation, but they're coming from a potentially, oh, this is so nice. Somebody's just asking me stuff. I'm just getting it all out. They're not interrupting me. They're not trying to tell me what to do. So that, is it perceived as an interrogation? Because this lady, she just opened up, and then she went, goodness, that was cathartic. And then 6 months later, we had another conversation, and she said the same at the end of it. And then it's been that sort of dance around, oh, I'm doing this, would you like to come along? And oh, now I'm doing this, would you like to come along? When it got to the event thing, it's like, I'm doing this, is that something that would be worthwhile for you? What would be worthwhile? And she had a list. She's like, oh, so it has, the connection happened a long time, even though I could see that it would really be a good thing for her from what she'd said. She remained a connection, somebody I was having conversations with 2 or 3 times a year for the last couple of years, and has become the person now who is a client. So there was that longer process. So I create connections now, knowing that there's the opportunity, as Rich says, some will be conversations and nothing more. Some will turn into clients.
I think that's beautiful. I really love that, actually, Kate. And I love the way that when you were talking about, when Neil had said around, we feel like it's an interrogation. And you're absolutely right. People love talking about themselves, don't they? It's and I've had clients, people like I call them clients, people I've had conversations with who've gone, I have never told anybody that ever before. Wow, that's great to get that out. And that's as far as it's gone. It's had that conversation and nothing further. And I think it also, I'm a bit like Neil. I noticed in myself, and I think I said this once before, that if I'm looking for somebody who I can maybe bring as an expert into my menopause group, I can open the conversation. And yet I'm stalling at the just connecting with the people I'd love to speak to. And I think that again, I'm going to go back to that and why we've got that sharing there, that love to speak to. I'm going to take the sharing off for a minute because we've got a couple of people with hands off, and have a chat first with Neil and then with Devon, if that's okay. Neil.
Yeah, I love that you emphasize that, Jane. I think that in my own the love part, I don't think that that's emphasized enough for me either, is this kind of the love aspect, there's something magnetic about that. And then there's also kind of like an inherent filter system like if I kind of think about that kind of interrogation questioning kind of thing, who would I love to connect with? I'd love to connect with someone who is open and is looking to connect, to talk about these kinds of things and to see where they go. Like they're interesting to me because they have interesting things to talk about and interesting challenges in their life and challenges I think that I could help with. So there's definitely like a kind of a cool filter that suddenly comes into the process when I think about connecting through love and what I would love to do. So that's and I definitely don't. I think that there is a filter of, like, I don't want to call it desperation or something, but there's definitely like a filter of what would work rather than who do I want to work with, who would I love to work with. So that's it's a different set of eyes to look at the world with.
I love that, Neil, because you went straight into who would I love to work with? And one of the first things I did when I saw this was go, so who would I love to work with? And then that thing came up, I think we talked about, was it last week? Or maybe it might well have been last week, actually, about fear of working with people who I perceive as better than me. And so I was like, I'd really love to work with these people. And I thought, hang on a minute, why would they want to work with me? I'd really love to connect with these people. Hang on a minute, why would they want to connect with me? So there's still a filter coming in there, I think. But I think this word love is so important in how we view those connections. And going back to what Kate was saying about you changed the way that you were looking at this. And you moved from kind of looking at the people that you could convert to just connecting with people and taking that pressure off. Sounded to me like you took that pressure off yourself. Like, I can talk to these people and they may or may not become clients. And there is something, isn't there, in those 18 principles about don't be desperate. And this word changes the way you view connect. This word love, I think, takes the desperation out a little bit, because it's just about connecting, and it's connecting with the people you're really keen to connect with, you'd really love to connect with, and not thinking about the next stage or the end game. For me, that's what really created something for me. I'm not thinking about the end game for me. I'm thinking about who is it? Who is it that would really like my spark? And it was things like people who are really interested in themselves and personal development for themselves and growth, and who can have an intellectual conversation and can be creative in that way. And that was a very different way of looking at it than who are the people I'm going to coach. So yeah, absolutely, Neil. I was going in that same direction in terms of, is it, it takes the desperation out of it. And I love that you've changed it. So Devon, bring you into it.
Curious if I'm the only one that is realizing that these consistent checkpoints are not only really valuable in the time that we have the conversation, but in the weeks in between. Like, I recognize that in this conversation since our last one, where I was like, oh, that's my biggest weak link, I have like 3 really vivid examples of connection that were not there before at all. And I wanted to share with those quickly. One was I went out to go collaborate and build a new site and all of this stuff. And the person that I was working with showed me what he was doing to connect with people on Twitter. And I don't use Twitter, doesn't matter the platform, but the principle is there. And he showed me that he was connecting with people that he was like, I'll probably never work with these people, but I want to connect with them. And it was with zero expectation of anything in return, but he was reaching out proactively to people that had exited multiple businesses. That's what he's really interested in, systems and automations and like 9-figure entrepreneurs. And we could sit there and pedestal them and go, they're untouchable, or go, they're a human and they're up to cool things. I'm just going to say, hey, I would love to connect. And
That's a really good
it
way
was
of looking at
almost
it, isn't it?
confrontational.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, you're connecting with all these people all the time with no expectations. And some of them will go further. And in the same week, I had the other person that I went out to go collaborate with. She had mentioned that she reached out to an artist, a musician that seemed to be pedestaled. Like, oh my God, I can't even believe they reached back out. And in the moment of her sharing, I was like, oh yeah, that would be wonderful as an artist if some fan reached out and was like, hey, I really love the work you do.
Yeah.
They're just a human too. So I'm realizing like it can be done from a place um of just interest and connection and appreciation, just like going by a stranger on the street and going, hey, I love your shirt.
Yeah.
And like I
Love
don't
that.
want anything from you. And I
Yeah.
love that like filter of practicality. Like if we take that off of, and stop looking for like who can I convert into a client and just like who do I actually love to work with? Maybe it is people that would be way higher level.
Yeah, and that's beautiful, isn't it? And it reminds me of a TEDx talk I listened to once. There's entitled "The Lollipop Moments," and it was really about the power in the connections that we make and the gifts we give to others by connecting with them. And you've just reminded me so much about that. And this story is a guy who just gave this person in this queue a lollipop because they looked nervous. And that just changed that person's life forever. You know, and all it was, hey, have a lollipop. That, you know, that'll help you, kind of thing. And yet it had such a profound impact. And if we really think about it, you know, by connecting, we're humans. Humans love to connect, don't they? We're a social animal. We're kind of driven to connect with others. And there's kind of also, you know, when somebody connects with you, there's that little bit that goes, oh, I wonder what it was about me that made them want to connect with me. So there's a bit of an ego stroke, isn't there, as well? You know, when somebody connects with, like you were saying about, you know, if a fan reaches out and says hi, there's something really beautiful about that. And I think, you know, we can turn it, can't we? We can turn it round and we can look at this. And this word love really does make that possible. And that's why it's so beautiful that it sits there, this word love. I'll come back to you. Yes, absolutely, then. Yeah.
Very briefly, I just think it's so interesting. I was like, I want to add that last piece, and it was about a TED Talk, working with someone that had done the TED Talk, and then you went right into that. So this
Right.
past week, the third thing was I supported someone who'd done a TED Talk. And I was like, this represents so much of who I would love to work with. Passionate,
Yes.
like they have a message, they're proactive. And yet I can very easily go, well, I've never done a TED Talk. I probably, am not credible. And it
Yeah.
just completely opened up my world to show up for someone. And he found it valuable. Send me a testimonial without even asking. And I was
Wow.
like, oh, these people that we pedestal, let's just relate to them as humans.
That's our thought creation, isn't it? You know, when we look at these things, these are our thought creations of this other person. They're not a reality. They're just how we perceive it. And realizing that is releases us, doesn't it, into the world in a much different way. And I love that. You know, I love that you had 3 episodes of that this week. And if I may, before I come to you, Neil, I kind of found myself in that situation this week as well. You know, I'm launching a new program from September. And I sat down and I thought, right, I'll connect with 5 people. I actually sat down and connected with 15. My ADHD took over. I went into a bit of hyper focus. But hey, and I'd been having a conversation with another guy, John Hart, about how we go around connecting. And my normal way is a message, a text message. And I just thought, hey, I'm just going to use my voice. I'm just going to talk. And the ones that I talked on, I got an immediate response to. Because there's a human connection, isn't there, when we use our voices rather than write some words. And when we write words, we kind of play with them, we look at them, does that sound right? And it's not instinctive, it's kind of created. But when we just talk, especially if we don't go, I'm going to edit that, we just literally talk, we don't check it out, it just comes out from the heart. And again, it's coming from love then, isn't it? So it's so beautiful. Yeah, and I love that you've had your experiences and I've had my experiences this week, and it was like talking about connect was like, oh, this is perfect, because this is what I've been attempting this week, just to build connections, and that's so beautiful. Neil.
I'm taking, this is the first Prosperous coach that I've taken notes, so I'm already taking notes. This is fantastic. Yeah, one of the things that it makes me think of is like, and this broader kind of prosperous person concept is curating the community and the connections that you want to have like in your life. You know, like how many times do you gravitate towards maybe a group of people because of something they do, or because you feel like you need to fit in with them or something like that, and maybe in an overall general way, or because it has like utility, rather than looking at it from a place of who would I love to connect with, like who, where, and putting that love first. So that really made me think about, especially what Devin was saying, and what Kate was saying about like kind of fostering these connections that are based on that connection through that filter of love, and that being and then knowing what you love about these people, like kind of knowing the filaments, the details, so that when you connect, it really is about, wow, I love this about this person because I love this about life, and then fostering around yourself this group before it's even about clients, you know, and maybe you kind of like farm clients or something, prospect clients from in that world, but it's just almost kind of like the struts of the little universe that you're making is based on love rather than utility or proximity or like, you know, some other kind of metric. So I think that that's an interesting way to just look at it. Like I think both of you are kind of said, like, connect first. Don't worry about the next set of, like, what happens when you just connect. You know, what are the metrics? What are the systems? Or what's the filtering that you're looking to when you just connect? So I thought that was really cool, because I think that sometimes I'll subject myself to people who I might not necessarily like because they are like in a similar world to me, you know, in music or something like that, which is not bad to have peers and stuff like that, but to be able to be like, okay, well, I connect with this person because of this, not necessarily because of a deep love or something like that, and then being able to be like, but these are the connections I really foster because of a symbiosis, of a love of some.
Yeah,
I thought that was really cool.
That is cool, and I love that. And while you were talking, I was kind of thinking how this does apply, sort of, you know, across life, doesn't it? In terms of, we can sit there, and I remember having this conversation with Kate. I don't have any connections. And she's like, "No, that's not true." you know, really calling me out on it. It's like, no, I cut them all off. No, that's really not true. And we can create that for ourselves, though, can't we? Because we can fail to do this connect and wait for others to do it to us. In the same way as we're kind of going, well, I haven't got any clients, because we're waiting for them to come to us. And actually we're missing this really important step. I'm going to share again because I want to go into the chapter. So let me just pull it up and move into the actual text. Because I think what we were talking about earlier there, Neil, as well, the way that we can connect when we're coming from love, when we're coming from, these are the people we would love to be connected to. This conversation, hey, Sarah, long time no speak, how's things? How's the family? Is much more natural because it's coming from a genuine care and a genuine interest in the person, rather than I better open this sentence with something that sounds like I'm interested. Which, if you're going straight into the I'll connect with this person so I can invite them, will be more mundane, my feeling is. So, that's it. Only connect at the start here. Ask yourself, who would I love to speak to? And then call them. Bring your humor and curiosity. Be genuinely interested in what they are up to. And these two words, love and genuine, I think are linked. I think that if it's not genuine, it's not coming from love. And if it's not coming from love, it's not genuine. That's my take on this. Because you can't make it. You can't fake it. If you're connecting with them because you think there'd be a client you can easily convert, but they're not really your ideal client. They're not and ideal, remember, we talked about considerably last week as well. They're not really your ideal client. They're not really the sort of people you love to have conversations with. Then this genuine bit is going to be forced too. And that was kind of my take on that. Love and and being genuine linked together. Neil, you have your hand up.
One thing I thought I didn't notice this before, I didn't really zoom in on it, was it says bring your humor and curiosity.
Yes.
That really, I think that sometimes I don't equate enough my humor and curiosity with professionality.
Yeah.
When it comes to being professional, I'm pretty regimented and like, okay, we need to do this and this and this. And then when I go to approach my marketing or something like that, I can be the same. A positive side of this actually was when I was doing the Instagram message for this Prosperous coach, I realized that I wasn't using what's in drama, it's called the open face. And if you spend any time in theater or something like that, you want to have like an open face. Like you want to have like, hey, how's it going? That's like your open face. And that's usually to convey like love or a connection or like excitement or curiosity or something like that. And a closed face is to like convey that you're withdrawn or angry or resentful or bitter. And when I'm in front of a camera, I can go into like a closed face kind of mode. And I was like, I need to use my open face for this. This is the only way that it's going to connect with people. I can't keep slipping into this closed face. And I can see in the Instagram message when I'm slipping back into closed face. So that's very much to me like the physical representation of humor and curiosity. So like the tone of voice, the facial expression, all those things convey that, and that's like a learned skill. Some people are not aware of their tone of voice and what is being conveyed. They could even be humorous or curious, but not know that they don't look or sound humorous or curious. So it just kind of reminds me in that moment of like, how do I convey love? How do I convey that I'm genuinely into this situation? Well, it's going to come through my tone and my ability to be loose and find some humor in what we're talking about. So I think that's I didn't realize that bring your humor. I got to remember that.
I love that. I love that note spotting and noticing that, because I was actually going to go back to that as well, because I thought about that as well. And I actually wanted to add another word, and especially for coaches, which is bring your humanity. Be human make it a human connection, because we're talking to other humans. So bring your humanity and connect with the humanity in the other person. And it's funny what you were saying about noticing your facial expressions and your tone and things like that. As a long-time teacher, one of the things you learn, I've seen your hand, Kate, thank you. As a long-time teacher, I've known that how I show up, the way I show up in the classroom affects what I get back. It's one of the key things that an expert teacher learns, which is to scan themselves and to be aware of themselves. And however upset, tired, unwell, angry you are when you walk in the room, you can't convey that. What you convey is, I care about you guys. Let's do this lesson together. You know, and bringing that, when you were talking, I was just thinking, bring that to all my connections, and I'm away. You know, that's so cool. Because
I just want to drop
yes,
one
sorry,
more
no.
thing in there, like because just to connect with what you're saying, I found every time, like as a teacher, that if I can help a student, especially a student that's like deep into some technical issue or something like that, and they're having trouble with it, or they're getting stuck and entrenched in maybe like a self-deprecation about things, if I can make them laugh about it or create some humor and loosen things up, then they're much more open to absorbing the concept that I'm speaking about, you know, and it makes them curious again. If I'm
Yeah,
like,
it takes the
again, just
takes the tension out of it, doesn't it? And
yeah,
when we're
exactly.
tense, we can't relate, we can't hear, we can't. And if we're tense when we're going into these connection questions, you know, when we're seeking connection, if we go in there with fear, if we go in there with tension, if we go in there with, you know, what if they say no kind of question, you know, what if they don't want to connect? And that is all that's in our mind. That is what we portray. Whatever the words are, what comes out is that message. So much of what we communicate is not in the words that we use. You know, is you can portray the funniest joke with a really stern look on your face, and the voice and body language being that of, this is so unfunny, you know, etc. And that is what people will receive it as, even if, and yet you can do it a different way and everybody will be laughing their heads off. It's so important that how, not just the what the words are that we use. Kate, I'm going to come to you because you had your hand up.
Thank you. I don't know why I don't have a raise hand app on my thing, so this is why I'm like this all the time.
No worries.
I was reflecting on Neil, when you talked about that professionalism and what is professionalism, and I know that we've talked about that before, and there's maybe we all have a perception of how we should be. So my role in HR are expected to be poker faced and wearing black, dressed as Grim Reapers all the time. Whereas I skip in, you know, covered in seaweed, and they're like, oh, so she, you know, she's odd for an HR person. So I do it my way. And along with the genuineness and the humility, I was thinking about the and bringing humor. I was thinking about being vulnerable and the authenticity, because part
Yeah.
of it is when people get to know you and then they get to like you and trust you. And that comes from not being a sort of emotionless solicitor, but being a very warm person. And for
Yeah.
you, Nick, you know, is there somebody I would rather listen to on this planet than you leading, you know, when you lead, as you all do here, you know, it's incredible, the warmth and the humor and the professionalism, they all weave into one. So I was thinking about all of those words, and then just going back to the love word, I flipped that around and I was thinking, so there's who would I love to work with, but actually there's who would love to work with me,
Oh, that's a
who
good
sees
question.
me and thinks, blimey, she's got it together and she's really old. How did she do that? So who would love to work with me? And there are people that will look at all of you and be like, do you know what? I'd just give my right arm to work with any of you. And they're nervous. So it takes them ages to pluck up the courage, but they're already getting to know you and like you and trust you, even if they're not yet brave enough to put a comment on a feed or like something.
Yeah.
So it's already happening. We just don't know it.
I think you said something really important there as well as that, which is the show up as you.
Mm.
You know, because you can't fake it. It's not fake it till you make it, because that always gets caught out. Show up as you. What's genuinely you? In the same way as you rock up covered in seaweed, you know. I was the head teacher that was constantly smiling, that had a poster of frogs, an office littered with frogs, because I collect frogs. I've never bought any, but people buy me them. And it used to create conversations, you know. I mean, and the kids would flock to my office at break times for conversations with the head. How many, you know, principals or head teachers in schools do the kids just go, do you know what? I'm going to have a conversation with the head. And I didn't have a label on my door either, because I showed up as me, and I couldn't have done it any other way. And I love the fact that you show up as you. You know, we have these images of what it should be, and we have then what is us, who we are when we do these things. And I think that genuine interest, but be genuine to yourself as well. Be really, you know, honor yourself. And you're absolutely right, Kate, when you talk about who would love to work with me. And you're right about those people who are circling around and who just haven't yet plucked up that courage. In the same way as we're struggling with this connect, so are they, because we're all human. And this is why, you know, it is such an important step. And without this step, everything else falls over, doesn't it? It really does fall over. Devon.
I love these conversations. I know I say that every call, but I really do. I wanted to highlight something here with you said that the genuine and humanity. And
Yeah.
you guys both mentioned something that I experienced real time of that connection. Like you saying something about collecting frogs is not something that most people would probably think is professional. But I used to have a poison dart frog collection when I was a little boy that
Brilliant.
then led me to like having like going to study that in the jungle of Peru. Like that's a deep part of my
Wow, that's
life that I
incredible.
would
Yeah.
never lead with.
Yeah.
And I in that moment felt so much connection to you. And it's like
Yeah.
that little piece, maybe you'd hide it because it's like that's not technically professional. But so much connection and humanity was created in that one little statement. And
Brilliant.
Kate, like, I love that you love swimming so much and show up in seaweed. And even from this, I'm like, oh, are you in a camper van right now? Like, that's the type of person you're in. And I'm like, and I can see that in everyone. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe it's not professional to have a drum set behind you, but like he's a professional drummer, so it makes sense. He has new Remo heads. Like he's got new heads going. He's taking this seriously. So it's all these little bits of humanity that I'm realizing are just like this creates safety. It creates connection.
Yeah. Yeah. We're no longer on a pedestal. The pedestal you talked about earlier, you know, by being human and honest to ourselves and genuine from ourselves, being who we are, and giving those bits of ourselves that create this normality, for want of a different word, it makes the connection so much easier. You know, it's because we're being human, we're being genuine, we're coming from love, we're bringing all of ourselves to that process, not just our humor and our curiosity, but as Kate said, our vulnerability, our you know, all of those elements. I've forgotten the other words you used. Neil's just said frogs were my totem spiritual animal for a long time. Wow, there's a huge connection in this room, isn't there? You know, we've got three of us now with frogs in the background. I have got about 1,000, no, probably more than 1,000 frogs, and I've never bought one. So there you go. Okay, shall we have a look at the next section? Let me share again, and we'll look at the next section. Okay. So we talked a little bit earlier, because Neil said this, sort of these questions. Hey, Sarah, long time no speak, how's things? And it's interesting because I did this week. There's a couple of people that I reconnected with this week that I noticed I hadn't spoken to for 6 months. And I just got checked in. So how are things with you at the moment? How's it going? You know, what are you up to? What's going on in your life? And those were the questions that I asked before I even looked at here. And okay, because those are our natural conversation starters, aren't they? But how's your business? What are you up to? I guess these questions: how's your business? What are you up to? What's your next big project? What are your biggest challenges right now? When we start bringing those questions into the conversation, that's when we're kind of looking for cues, I guess. That's where we're looking for cues. And then we've got, at some point, when you are genuinely interested, here's the word again, genuinely interested. And this is why it's important that people we'd love to connect with. You may see a way that you can support or be of service to her. And again, this is not about, hey, shall I coach you? Will you pay me to be your client? This is about service. So maybe there's a book you can recommend, or an article you can send, or a client you can refer to her. These are all things that are coming before. Maybe they're struggling to turn a dream into a clear vision. Maybe they just inspire you. And that's when you go to the next step. There's so much in this chapter before we're starting our next step, the invite. And yet we're missing so much of this when we go straight to invite. Neil.
I am so stoked that we are doing this chapter again. Like, I've read this so many times, and it's just sometimes you just see so much more, you know? I think that for this chapter, and I think Devin kind of spoke about it last time we were doing this, that, you know, connect can just so easily bleed into invite. You know, like, connect is like, you just look at it like this trampoline. I'm just gonna jump on it and jump right into invite. And it makes invite really stressful. And it also kind of makes connect stressful in the sense that it's just this trampoline that you're gonna hit and jump away from, you know? Whereas if I really just think about when I'm talking with someone, and I do this genuinely already, that there might be a book I could recommend, or an article I could recommend to someone, or a client I could refer them to. I do that and love doing that all the time. I'm like a nexus for people in that sense. Like, I just had a bass player, call me and ask me if I had this other bass player's number. I was like, how am I the one in the middle of it? You guys are all bass players. Like, you should have each other's phone numbers. But that was great to me, because I love both of those bass players, and the fact that they could connect was fantastic. One of them needed a sub for a gig. So it's not that I'm known for being that type of connecting person. So I just connected in my mind how that natural kind of thing to do could then turn into something more if I noticed, like you're saying, what, like the later on in the sentence, those cues where they might be having a struggle, but that can all come out of conversations I already naturally enjoy having. And I never noticed that before with the same kind of.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. And what's just come to me when you're talking like this as well is that when I looked at this list of questions, I kind of saw them originally as all at the same time. But there's something that's kind of saying to me now, these are not all at the same time. These are over time. You know, hi, Sarah, long time no speak. How's things? How's the family? Then they're sort of like, you know, you're getting into conversation. Maybe you're checking in. You go, hey, how's things? What are you up to right now? Might be a later on question. As the depth of the connection grows, the depth of the conversation grows, doesn't it? Naturally. When we first meet somebody, we're kind of just checking each other out. Who are you? You know, what you're doing? How's life for you? You're kind of trying to find some common ground. But when you've built that common ground, you're kind of going, you're genuinely interested in how life is for them. What's going on for them? But when I first saw this, I thought, oh, this is all in one go. I think that's too quick. My head now is going, that's way too quick. This is where that 2 years that Kate's going on about, you know, earlier, right in the start, that 2 years makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? Because it's like, we're building that rapport, you're building that understanding, you're building that trust that you talked about earlier, Kate. Those aren't built in a couple of conversations. You know, that belief in each other and that real understanding of what next is not there in those first couple of conversations. Philip, be lovely to hear from you.
Hi everyone. Hello.
Hi.
I'm really enjoying the conversation. It's lovely to see everyone. Haven't been here for a few weeks, but yes. Right, I'd like to join in the conversation and say something which might be a little bit abrasive, but I think I'm just reflecting maybe a thought that other people have, although I was just contemplating it and kind of try and close the loop on the thought myself. But anyway, the thought in general is when you see people, or I get this feeling when I see people reaching out, you know, you get messages on Instagram or on Facebook, especially if you open yourself up on public groups, somebody sends you a friend request or somebody follows you on Instagram, you accept the request or you follow them back or whatever, and then they send you a message. And obviously sometimes you get the really spammy, obvious ones, which is just like a link, and that's obviously spam. But then, okay, you get the authentic ones where it's like, hey, Philip, you know, I see you're also a pianist. Cool. Just wanted to connect. And my instant reaction, maybe it probably says a lot more about me than it does about them, is you're trying to sell me something. And it feels like really forced to me, like you're just reaching out and trying to force a connection to, I guess, yeah, sell me something, or yeah, to connect. So I'm kind of contemplating this thing because on one hand, I'm saying this, oh, it's so obviously spam and salesy, and you're connecting because you're looking for a client or a customer or a sale. But then I'm also aware of the fact that, like, for example, Devon is like reaching out to me on Instagram. Thanks, Devon, and sending me things. And I feel like it's really authentic and really cool. So I'm kind of juggling with this idea of, like, on one hand, being a little bit abrasive and saying, oh, I just feel so salesy. Like, because I authentically don't reach out and connect with people. But kind of having this conversation is breaking down this barrier a little bit in my mind and making me think, like, there's no harm in just having a conversation. So that's my abrasive thought, and I'm very curious how people are perceiving what I've just said.
I'll take this first, if you don't mind, and then I'll come to you, Devon, and then Neil. So it's really interesting what you say here, Philip, because I'm the same. When somebody just goes, "Hey, Jane, how are you?" My first question is, "What the heck?" To myself is, "What the heck do they want?" You know, and then I just go, "Oh no, just go with the flow," and I'll answer the question. And sometimes, you know, soon after there's a salesy pitch, and then I just delete them. Because it's like, okay, we haven't created a connection here, and this was all false. And other times it actually builds genuine conversation. But one of the things that I've started doing, because it felt uncomfortable to me as well, just to connect with people, hey, how are you? What I've done is I started looking at people, starting with people who react in some way to a post. Either they like it, they love it, or they comment on it. This is outside of my close circle. So on the social medias. I'm going, oh, I noticed that you made this comment. Thank you so much for making a comment on my post. I wonder what drew you to my post. So I'm just being curious. I'm curious, you know, I wonder what drew you to my post. I'm really curious about this, you know, and that has sparked some really interesting conversations with different people. And it is genuine, because I am curious what draws people to different posts. And if I'm, say, writing about burnout and somebody comments on there, you know, that it can start a conversation about their own journey with burnout, which is a useful conversation. Because I want, you know, I'm going to be running a program on burnout. They don't know that, but I have got this history with burnout, and I'm genuinely wanting to rid the world of burnout. So it's kind of a different way of trying to build that connection. And I know, Kate, we've talked about this as well, and you've done much the same in terms of responding to people who respond to you. But I'm not responding to just their comments. I'm kind of choosing particular posts to put out there and going, I'm really curious about the people who've reacted to this post. And I'm going to connect with them and ask them questions. Some of them I already know, and I still ask them the question, and others I don't. And then new connections. Devon.
I love that you brought this up, Philip. Thank you. It was the elephant in my room. If that makes sense. I was thinking the same
Yeah,
exact
mine
thing.
too.
And I actually realized it, and I was going to raise my hand and say something when Jane said these really, like, there were a few examples. I actually wrote down the timestamp because in that moment of your genuine, like, hey, how's it going? I realized I don't even know if I remember how to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And I do. Like, I just had great connection with the guy that drove me from the airport. He ended up to be like a Sikh priest from India and shared his whole life
Wow.
and was started singing in the car. Like I do, but in social media or when there's a business orientation, there's a real hesitation. I think because of studying people's outreach and like understanding marketing and persuasion, like you get into this world and it kind of taints just authentic. Hey, how's it going? You're like, oh,
Yeah.
that's part of their strategy. Good one. It sounds authentic. So yeah, thank you for calling that out. That's all.
I think though, I agree with you because it does affect me, but we have to start a conversation somewhere, don't we? And checking in with them's a good way of starting a conversation. It's how quickly you move it. This is why when I get people who ask me how I am, and then the next one is, hey, that's good. How about this? It's like, oh, yeah, that was just a conversation started just to sell me something. But if then it actually develops into a real conversation, then that's when it becomes genuine. And I think fear of upsetting somebody stops us quite a lot, doesn't it? Fear of going, they're just going to think I'm being pushy, which comes back to that bit at the beginning about be genuinely interested. Be genuinely interested. Put some time and thought into, why am I wanting to talk to this person? What is it about this person that I'm attracted to? What is it that makes me want to be genuinely connecting with this person? And when we're coming from that place of, this is somebody I genuinely want to have a conversation with, this is somebody I genuinely want to connect to, I want to be in their world because I'd love to speak to them. We're coming at it from a different angle, and I think that changes the energy of the connection, which is why I think the spoken word has so much power as well, because you can convey a lot more of that in the spoken word than you can in the written word. Neil.
Yeah, there's a couple things I wanted to key in on that. And also that I find this fascinating in a prosperous person sense of like, if you're to meet, say for me, if I was going to, say if I saw some girl that I thought was really cute at the Starbucks or something like that, and I want to talk to this girl, this whole kind of same marketing thing can be applied to that in the sense that I could approach that girl and be like, hey, how's it going? And she could immediately think, oh, this guy just wants to hook up with me. That the only reason that this guy is speaking with me is because he wants something from me. He wants to have like a sexual experience, And if that person has that way of thinking with every guy who walks up to them and wants to talk to them, chances are they're not going to find someone who they really want to spend time with because they're not really opening themselves up to the idea that there's more here than just the person wanting to take something from them. That the person might be curious about who they are, that obviously thinks they're beautiful and likes their energy, but there might also be a desire for an intellectual or emotional connection or some type of networking or partnership or anything like that. But when a person approaches you like in any sense, you have a single-minded view of why they might be approaching you, it kind of seals off all of the potential for other things to happen. It also seals off the potential for what the person you might be pursuing you for to be a positive thing, you know? Like even if it is like, yeah, I want to hook up, like, well, this person, well, maybe I want to hook up with them too, you know what I mean? But also admitting that to yourself as being something that would be that you do want to be sold that way, you know? Like sometimes when marketing people or salespeople or coaches or whatever are approaching you, they might be bringing you something that's actually really worth your time and energy. And if you're open to it and want to invest in it, that it could change your life. Like for me, that was I continually saw this ear training program, like advertised on the internet, and I saw it so many times, and finally I was like, oh, I'm so curious about this, and I went and investigated it. I still use that ear training program like 2 years later. It was a very expensive ear training program, but it was extremely good. And but I had to be open to purchasing that. Like I had to be open to the marketing, I had to be open to the testimonials, I had to be open to the information that was on the website and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's like this two-way connecting street, like you had said before, Jane. Like the people who might want your services are also just as you know, they're maybe just as worried or anxious or unsure as you are about your services, you know? So like being able to, and just like when you approach someone that you might find interesting, there's going to be that time where a connection needs to kind of proliferate. Like something has to happen to bring the two people together, and there has to be like a certain level of open-mindedness. I think that's also where it gears into this who would I love thing, or yeah, if there's any type of, it's like Nick was saying that, you know, his way of explaining was like if you're at a coffee shop and you see some girl there, just as well as like what you're saying with these questions, you know, maybe you say like, oh, so it looks like so you like a lot of cream in your coffee, you know, you just like something small that's going to connect the two of you together. And then you might be like, hey, do you want to like chat for a minute? You want to sit, you know, like are you going somewhere fast? Like anything like that. You don't just go, the next question isn't like, hey, so you want to marry me? Like, you know, like you don't jump from simple questions that build a connection to like, what's your biggest challenge in life? You know, like after you've had like
Exactly.
5 minutes of a conversation. So like there's these like little places where you can begin to connect if the person seems open, because they are open to, maybe they're even open to the idea of selling, just like being sold on something or getting a new product, just like they might be open to having a relationship with you or a friendship, right? So there's like, there has to, and I, just to push this one a little bit further, is like, I don't think you can expect the world to be more open than you are. So if like you are typically a person that's like doesn't, you know, like if you're like someone messages you and you're like, ah, that person's just trying to sell me on something. It's like, yeah, well, hello, you know? So like, so investigating and going deeper into conversations with other people is kind of a practice of personal autonomy in any type of relationship. Like, do I want this product? Tell me about it, you know? And then learning to ask questions and like, you know, and or like, do I want to be in a relationship with this person? Let's see what you're actually like, and just give life a chance, you know, to work its magic on you, kind of thing. If you want to work your magic on it. It's kind of like,
I love everything that you said in there and about the connection to real life, and that whole idea that if we don't go into connection openly, then we're closing down so much of the world to ourselves, aren't we? And if we apply that within business and within personal life, it's life-changing, completely life-changing. You know, if you go around in the world thinking, they only want something from me, or I don't know, they won't want to talk to me, which is, you know, I've had that one before now, they won't want to talk to me, then you're closing down so many conversations just with your own thoughts. So give it a go. Philip.
Can I just put one more thing in there just before you jump?
Of course.
I just wanted to say, I was watching this. Sometimes I'm flipping through Instagram, and there's this one girl who's like a men's rights activist chick, and she's a really funny person. I find what she has, her content, very funny. But what she said was really interesting because she very much advocates for men's rights and like men approaching women and all these kinds of things. And she told this story out recently how she was in the grocery store and this guy approached her and was like, "Hey, like and she thought he was approaching her because she has this quite prolific Instagram, YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So he thought he was gonna say something about that. But what he actually did was be like, you're really beautiful. I'd love to take you out sometime." And she was so astonished that he was saying this. And she said he was a cute guy and he seemed really nice and all this stuff. But she just didn't know what to say in the moment. She just kind of mumbled some stuff about how she had a boyfriend and kind of like was like,
Yeah.
"But you're really nice and thanks and see you later." And she was like, and when her story was like the moral of her story basically was like, learn to be present when people connect with you, because
Yeah.
if you want the world to connect with you, be ready to be present, because and that's the hardest thing for a lot of people, is that something can come out of nowhere and then you just fumble the ball because you're not used to the idea of being present for someone connecting with you. So
that is such a huge point to note there. I think that idea that we have to be ready for the connection. I think that is because so often we can close ourselves down, can't we, to that connection? That's a huge point to make there. Thank you, Neil. Philip.
I almost feel like whatever I was going to say it can't be as interesting as what Neil just said. Thank you, Neil.
Not true. Not true.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking about actually what does it mean if you are sort of stifling your connection, like you kind of want to reach out because okay, so I want to reach out, but then I'm like, well, I don't want to come off salesy like I'm trying to just sell something. The flip side of that is, well, actually make it a genuine, authentic connection. And I think just in the way that I was thinking about this, and I was thinking like, why do I have this apprehension to just reaching out to people? And it's like, you know how sometimes when you're online and you're actually free and you can respond to someone, you get that back and forth and there's a connection, and then somebody just suddenly leaves you on read. Like I have so many conversations which I just feel like I started but wasn't finished because somebody just left it on read. And I was thinking like, what's the reason why I don't want to reach out? And I think on one hand it can be apathy, but I think on the other hand it's not wanting to be annoying. So I think those are the two kind of reasons which stop me from reaching out. But yeah, the apathy one is the apathy one is maybe the dominant energy for me, actually. I don't want to be annoying, but I'm a bit apathetic about just reaching out because I don't want to start a conversation if it's not going to go anywhere. I'd rather just keep myself to myself. I'm just reflecting on this whole conversation. So yeah, sharing my thoughts.
And I think so many of us have been there, Philip. I can recognize myself in so much of what you were saying there, and I saw others nodding as well. So I think this is a familiar feeling. And kind of also in my head there was that thing around, so if I'm just about creating friendships, do I wait for people to make friends with me, or do I make steps myself to create friends? Because if I'm waiting for others, then if they're like me, we could be waiting forever. If I'm a waiter and I look around at my sort of immediate group and I think, yeah, there are people in there, who are constantly waiting. And this is, we create the energy by which we create, don't we, I guess? And that connecting though, Philip, I definitely feel you there, and I know where you're coming from, and I get that completely. Devon.
That resonates so deeply, Philip. Thank you. I love when you speak, and I love that you're apprehensive to speak. And then every time you do, it's so genuine that I'm like, thank you. That was, are you transcribing my thoughts?
Yeah.
I'm realizing, to go back a little bit, I think it was Jane who had mentioned, connect with those who connect with you. So like if you post a piece of content and you get curious about who resonated with that, and someone has engaged, it's kind of like someone waving across the street at you, and it wouldn't be weird to wave back and be like, how's it going?
Yeah.
So I think that principle is really great. And then for the first time, I'm realizing something that I do naturally, but it's also really effective, which is everyone that's posting stuff online is bidding for connection. And if it's so outward focused, like, oh, I need to post more, I need to dial in my content strategy. And I'm realizing if I were to do the complete opposite, which is one of the principles in the book, if I were to have no posts, but I were to genuinely engage with other people's posts, which I do, and it's not a strategy, it's just being human, but that actually works. That develops
Yeah.
relationships when you have like a thoughtful comment.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Because, I was thinking about my own practice and, and when I haven't gone out there and sort of, been talking to people. And then I thought, I do that though. I do exactly what you're talking about, Devin. I go and I comment on others and I read others' posts and I get engaged in their posts and I feed back to them. That's a beautiful spot. I love that spot. And absolutely, Philip, you have so much. Every time you speak to my heart. You speak to the things that I'm feeling too. And I love that you're voicing it. It's so beautiful that you're voicing it. So thank you for doing that, Neil.
Yeah, I would also like to chime in and say that resonates, Philip. That was also something that I worked, especially over the last year, 2 years, but definitely in the last year, I worked really a lot with that apathy. It was, I would say that, contrary maybe to popular belief, but I'm way better with machines, instruments, and computers than I am with people. I would rather spend 90% of my time with sound that these things make than with what people say. Flat out any day of the week. So it took me a lot to want to open up and connect with people. But I also realized that the only way to do what I wanted to do, which was connect essentially with people I love and found inspiring and interesting and work through things with them and use some of my natural talents, that I had to dispel this apathy. And it was really a frame of mind. And also though, and I think that this chapter really gets specific about it, is that I didn't know who I loved. I knew what I loved. I loved playing music. That's for sure. But was I really trying to foster love in my relationships? Not even necessarily. I would even say that in my relationships with people, I was aloof. I was willing to see them all as equal, and even to see like my relationships with like lovers or girlfriends as possibly something that could go away and I would be fine with that. Like I tried to really keep some distance between myself and anyone that I could possibly love. And then I had to realize that that was not going to work for what I needed to do in life. And then it wasn't allowing me to be the best musician I could be, or the best friend, or the best lover, or anything like that. So I shifted directions and I started fiercely loving people and fiercely loving what I was doing and fiercely loving my life and closing the gap. And beginning to tell the people in my life that I cared about them deeply. and that I cared deeply about what I was doing, and it made me have to be very, very vulnerable. And whereas before I was very, very aloof, where my defenses were high, to put it simply, you know? And behind those walls of defenses, I wondered why I kept finding myself in the same positions and wasn't able to create the prosperity that I wanted. And it was only really through being like, no, what it is that I gotta love like intensely. I gotta be nose to nose with this thing or it's not gonna work. And so I really relate to your apathy, that sense of apathy, Philip. Now I talk to everybody. I'll be in the lineup and I'll see some girl or some guy, I'll point at things in their grocery cart. I'll go anywhere I am. I talk to anyone I can about anything I can see to talk about, just to try and consistently be in a place where I'm like, I will be as close to you as I can, because before that I found humanity kind of icky, to be honest. And music very easy, pure, you know. Now I love the dirt. I'm like, okay, so we're all in here and it doesn't make sense. It's confusing, and that's what I cherish about the whole thing, is the flaws and the problems. And that's where I found my love. So that's made my businesses, all the business that I do in every quadrant, work a lot better and help me to just bulldog my way through any situation that wasn't working. It's like someone's trying to get away from me and I just pull them closer. It's just like, no, we're working together. Like, at least for now. Like, you can leave once the contract's over, but like, we're gonna make this work from love, not from anger or chastising, or you know what I mean? So that's what I found. That was my way to deal with apathy, which I was very apathetic.
Do you know what? There's so much beauty in what you're sharing there. And Kate picked up closing the gap. And I love that as an analogy. There's a like flip side for that, because in education, closing the gap means closing the gap between those who can't and those who can. But I guess there's that closing the gap between hiding away from the world, hiding away from humanity, and being in it. And that's kind of what I'm seeing you stepping up to here, and hiding away and taking what Philip was sharing and what you were sharing as well. And I'm thinking, you know, I can see that for me too. You know, I was sitting there waiting for people to connect with me, and I mean in life. And this is not just about, you know, as a coach, and it's playing out in the coaching business. You know, I'll wait for them to connect with me, because if they don't connect with me first, then how do I know they want to connect with me? And yet, you know, they could be sitting there saying exactly the same thing. I'll wait for her to connect with me, then I'll know that she'll connect with me. And I love that, because I will go around and I will say hello to everybody. When I walk the dogs, everybody I pass on the street, everybody, good morning, how are you? Good afternoon, how are you? And sometimes a conversation starts, and sometimes they put their head down and go, who's this person saying hello? You know, and if I'm on the train, talk to a person sat next to you. And for me, there's almost that, I don't know about others, but it's almost easier to connect with somebody you don't know than somebody, and have a conversation with somebody you do know sometimes as well. But that whole thing about bringing love to it, and bringing humanity, and bringing genuine curiosity, and just being you, I think that's beautiful, isn't it? Just be you. And the people who want to connect with you will connect. And the people who aren't the people that want to connect with you won't. And not seeing that as rejection. And I think sometimes where we're hearing this word apathy, I'm actually more connecting that with fear. Fear rather than apathy. And I'm wondering if fear is creating the inaction. What if they don't want to connect? You know, and that can be such a challenge. Devon.
I love that you drilled underneath apathy to fear. And what I saw in Neil's connection, which kind of illuminated a lot of my childhood, was tools and machines and instruments can't reject me. Like, they can't reject me. So there's a safety there. And putting yourself out there and actually like honoring that desire for connection is brave. And I'm also realizing
Yeah.
that when we have these conversations that I would dare to say that most people are walking around every single day craving connection, scared of rejection, and not putting themselves even in a place to be open to having the connection that they desire.
Yeah.
And that by having these, another thing that's striking me with Jane and Neil is you're talking about these connections that have no relevance to coaching, but are
Mm,
just in life. Like, hey, you like that
yeah.
kind of salsa in the groceries? Like, there's no, it's just connection. And we can practice this in every place in our life with no desire to get anything in return. And it's almost
Yeah.
liberating to be like, oh, I just created this amazing conversation. I could even ask for something to continue it, but I'm gonna be like, they don't even know my name. I'm just gonna create the connection and carry on with the day.
Yeah. I've discovered in my life children and dogs are good conversation starters. If you have either one of them with you, you can start a conversation with ease. Can I bring Kate in? I know, Kate, you haven't put your hand up, but I love what you've written in the chat. It's rarely rejection, often reluctance from their own perspective. I wondered if you could explore that before we bring Neil and Philip in.
Sure. Um, I've had a recent experience where somebody has liked my posts on LinkedIn, and I like posting, so I care not if people like them. I just like doing it. And this guy has been, we've had like the odd LinkedIn chitter chatter, and then he commented on something recently, and I was like, oh, so what was it that resonated? I did that bit. And then he said, and that it was the age thing. He's like, don't think I'm rude, but you're
Yeah.
older than me. And here I am, half your age, and feeling like my life is over. I don't know what to do next. So I said, what would you like to have happen? He said, actually, I'd really like a conversation. So we had a conversation, then we had another conversation, then he committed. We went over why he committed and what he wanted. And then I said, I'm gonna raise an invoice and then we'll put the dates in the diary. And he's like, yeah, I can't wait. I'm so excited. And these are the things that I want. And I'm da da da. And nothing. He has disappeared off the face of the planet. And this isn't, he has not rejected me. He is reluctant. For whatever reason, he
Yeah.
has decided it's not yet. And 6 months ago, I probably would have overthought that for at least a month as to why, what did I do
Yeah.
wrong? Did I pitch it wrong? Was I too pushy? Did I say too much money? But actually, it's not rejection. He's just not ready. And when Rich says in that chapter, so I highlighted that word, it may come
Yes.
thing. So he's
Beautiful. Yeah.
legit that, what is in the big scheme of a conversation to a client, I feel like may is quite this end of it rather than that end of it.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
you're beautiful in spotting that, because it's maybe, maybe, maybe at the end. It's really important, isn't it?
but it's so our reluctance for fear of rejection, actually other people are being reluctant as well. So we go back to, if we're all feeling reluctant, then nothing's ever going to happen. So if we're being ourselves and chattering away, whether it's at Starbucks or whether it's online, and I love that, actually invest your time in engaging with other people's posts,
Yeah.
as well as, if you want to, post your own stuff, but engaging with other people. And it's, it ties back to that whole relationship thing. We don't ask if somebody likes, sugar in their Starbucks and then say, will you marry me? And then, but in a coaching relationship, we feel like it should be different. But when we're outside of being in a coaching thing, it feels like a bit of common sense. It goes somewhere else. But actually, it's only about relationships. and we wouldn't simply say, I love the way you take your coffee. Shall we get married?
Do you know what? I'm loving everything that you're saying, and it's so incredible. And that focus on relationships, and then that, you know, we wouldn't say, do you like sugar in your coffee? And then, will you marry me? And I love that, because that then reminds me of that don't be needy. Because when we go straight to, you know, we bounce on that trampoline that Neil was talking about earlier, or Devon, I can't remember which one of the two of it was. I wrote it down. We bounce on that trampoline and we maybe touch connect, but only as a method of immediately going into, you know, invite. Then we're doing that, aren't we? When we're not putting investment into, we're not showing a genuine interest. We're going, gimme, gimme, gimme. It's not all about them. And really, it should be an investment in them. And I love that, Kate. Thank you so much for sharing. Neil.
I think that reluctance thing, you really keyed in on that, Kate, and I think that's so beautiful. And I think that the concept of love really helps that, like personal love, love for humanity, love for other people, and then probably, especially in a situation where it's someone who you love to connect with, if they're being reluctant, you're going to give them a bit more grace. Like that's kind of the thing that I've come to find in life a lot lately, where maybe in the past I was seeking like a certain perfection, like a certain, like, come on, think better, or like just I had my own vision or idea of how people should manage their lives, and how maybe the ideal way that you could live your life, like in accordance with your kind of personal will. And yeah, through more love, and creating more love in myself and being willing to just give that love out, I've given people a lot more grace. So when people are reluctant to do something, or things take longer, or something else just occurs in the situation that I could have before thought was, yeah, something directed at me or just a failure for them in their life, I'm just like, like, we'll see what happens next. Like that's kind of like and that's given me a lot more freedom to not dwell, like Kate was saying, like rather than if someone leaves me on read, I'm like, oh well, they probably had something they had to do, or like, you know, if someone ghosts, I'm like, you know, maybe they're going through something really heavy, or maybe this just wasn't what they needed at this time in life. So it just kind of releases me from the burden of trying to understand the mystery of what happens with other people. And that has been super helpful in the apathy and fear realm, you know? And also, even if I'm talking to someone directly and it's not coming off the way that I would like it to come off, it gives me some grace in that too, to be like, it's just not going the way I thought it would go. It's going the way it's going. And that's also been really helpful. So
I love that. Yeah, I love that, Neil, and so much of what you were saying and picking up on the reluctance as well. That's incredible. And I've just seen Kate's comment releases me from the burden of wondering what is going on for others. And I would also say something that you said, Kate, as well, and you were taking into, it's not about us, because so often we see rejection as, where have I failed? What have I done wrong? If we take ourselves out of it and we just go, oh, it's just, it just is. I mean, learning to do that, I'm still in that process of learning that. But something you're saying about, you know, somebody being reluctant, yeah, signing up, let's get the dates in. I had exactly that, and then complete silence. And then yesterday, can we have that conversation again? Can we get started on how we're going to get the coaching into place 6 months later? And all I did in between was just check in with them occasionally. You know, I see you've gone on holiday to Norway. How was that? That looked amazing. It's one of the places I'd love to go. You know, that sort of conversation. So genuine, I'd really love to go to Norway. I haven't been to Norway. What was it like? I got some photographs, but that was the only conversation. I'm mindful of the time. So can we go to Philip, and then perhaps if Neil would like to close after that?
We could skip my comment entirely because I feel like it's a little bit just looking for a little bit of approval. But I'm being really honest. No, says Devon. Okay.
And I was about to say the same. So absolutely not.
If I've raised my hand, then I'm sure it's important enough. Okay, so on the subject, and I found this when I went to teaching online, was I had to really be very precise with my words, and I started to unintentionally develop this skill of being like really precise, right? And then with coaching, it's developing that skill even more of being really precise with your words, being really perceptive and thinking and sort of speaking and really genuineness, right? It's that authenticity is being to the point. And I wanted to share with you a little bit of a success story from this. Some of you may see from my Facebook, Instagram stories that I've been going to some festivals. Well, at one of the last festivals, I met a lovely lady, and the conversation started from me just being really authentic and courage, just walking up to her and saying, "You're very beautiful. My name is Philip." And we ended up speaking for 3 hours, and she was totally, amazed at how just authentic, direct, and everything I was. And yeah, it's going really well. We're seeing each other this weekend, and our whole relationship is kind of founded on this just really authentic, direct communication. Like we really just say exactly what we feel, and that's awesome. So I just wanted to share a success story of the power of authentic, truthful communication.
And what a beautiful way to bring a conversation about connect to its beautiful end. Wow. Thank you, Philip. That was awesome. An awesome way to finish.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm grateful I was able to share the story with you. Thank you for listening.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, that is fantastic. Yeah, Philip, that was thanks for really tying the whole thing together in the prosperous person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that is you being a prosperous person to me. That is the ideal situation where you used elements of the prosperous coach in a way which affected your life and created prosperity. Someone came into your life, a treasure came into your life, an experience, something that you both and then the way that you're connecting and that authenticity and sharing and continuing that authenticity. It's fantastic. I have to acknowledge Jane and her amazing facilitating abilities. It was fantastic. Grounded, straightforward, intelligent conversation. Really good, fantastic timing. You did a great job of moving through the group in a way that felt like there was a continual energy. We also eventually landed in such a squishy place, and to me, that is the true skill of a facilitator, is to go beyond the surface, beyond the intellectual elements of it, and into a place that has some emotional depth, because that's the real staying power of this information, in my opinion. So I have to acknowledge you for moving out of the way in a beautiful way to allow that energy to, circulate in this group, to percolate. So again, another fantastic session. I can't wait for people to see these sessions. Sometimes there's up to 400 views on these videos. So in terms of lurkers, there is a lot of you out there. So I know you're out there and I know you're watching the videos, and thank you for watching the videos. I hope there's some commentary. And again, to everyone in this call, thank you for your extreme courage in unpacking these things in your personal life and showing how they've been useful to you, your personal struggles with the information. It is a gold mine. See you guys next week.
Thank you.